Dependence on water for reproduction. Bryophytes are very dependent on water for reproduction. The spores rely on water for transport once they have been released. Pteridophytes are also dependent on water as it transports their spores after they have been released by the sauries. Angiosperms require water for various processes but are not reliant on it for reproduction. They have creatures and wind to perform the pollination process instead. Gymnosperms are also not reliant on water for reproduction, as they also rely on the pollination process. The flower as a reproductive structure. Flowers contain reproductive organs. There is a female and male sex organ within each flower. The male sex organ is the stamen. The stamen contains two sections, the filament and the anther. The filament is the long support structure that holds the anther. The anther is the bud-like structure that holds the male gamete, pollen. The anther is positioned in such a way that any insect or bird that lands upon the flower will most probably come into contact with the pollen grains, and inadvertently, the creature transports the gamete toward another flower. This process is called pollination and can be replicated by wind. The pollen grain that enters the carpel through the stigma and travels down through the style toward the ovary. The male gamete then enters the ovary and fuses with the ovule to form a fertilized zygote. Flowers have adapted to these processes to make pollination and fertilization as easy as possible. Asexual versus sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction produces individuals that are genetically identical to their parent plant. Advantages include that there is no time or energy wasted in the gamete formation process. Only one parent is required, and so there is no dependence on another partner. A disadvantage is that there is little diversity between plants, and a fault in the single plant could lead to the following generations being affected accordingly. Sexual reproduction produces offspring by the fusion of gametes, resulting in offspring genetically different from their parents. Advantages include the production of a unique and diverse species. Most bad genetics are eliminated from the existing population. A disadvantage is that the process of fertilization and zygote development requires large amounts of time and energy. Pteridophytes. Pteridophytes are vascular plants that are reliant on water for reproduction. The plant has true leaves and roots and relies on them for various vital health processes. The female gametophyte contains sauries, which releases spores during the reproduction process. These spores are reliant on water as they cannot travel very far in the air. The plants do not contain fruit, and examples of these plants are fern trees. Bryophytes. Bryophytes are non-vascular plants that are heavily reliant on water for reproduction and nutrition. The plant has no true leaves and roots, as water is directly absorbed by it, and there is no wax cuticle layer on the bryophyte, resulting in this absorption. The female gametophyte of the plant releases spores during the reproduction process. The spores find their way to the male gametophyte via water. These plants have no fruit, and examples include moss and liverworts. Gymnosperms. Gymnosperms are vascular plants that hold their gametes in protective cones and are reliant on pollination for reproduction. The plant has true leaves and roots and relies on them for vital processes. Reproduction occurs when the male pollen fuses with the female seed to form a fertilized zygote. This process is reliant on wind, not water. These plants contain no fruit, and examples of these are pine trees and cycads. Angiosperms are vascular plants that have flowers, which are vital for the reproductive process. The plant has true leaves and roots. The carpel and stamen are the female and male sex organs. They form part of the flower. Fertilization occurs as the male gamete fuses with the female ovule within the carpel. This eventually forms a seed, which develops into a new plant over time. This happens via pollination and is very reliant on the wind factor. Examples include roses and violets.